Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first camera-included episode of the Football Experience, brought to you by On the Pod. Finally, we can put names to faces.
Faces
Joined,
to names.
or whatever way you want to put it. Caleb, how you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Still suffering the hangover of losing to United, I think. So looking forward to the fixtures on the weekend.
Yeah, hopefully you will Liverpool get a bounce back, but Bournemouth have been well, they've shipped in 7 goals against the league leaders and the league current runners up, I guess you would say, or previous year's champions. So you would expect Liverpool to bounce back, but Bournemouth fed up with shipping the goals.
Well, I hope they're not quite fed up come this weekend, and then after that they can stop shipping goals. But we need a few.
Yeah, you guys definitely need to bounce back. So we'll since there's no big games this weekend, like the top, I guess, the big six are they're versing sort of, I guess you'd say, middle of the table or bottom of the table teams. It's just sort of a standard, not boring week, but yeah, standard week in the EPL fixtures. So we're not going to do any deep dives really into any fixtures. We might spend a little bit longer on Chelsea Leicester since there's a little bit of a narrative going on there with Chelsea trying to sign one of Leicester's players. So maybe we can go into a little bit deeper there. But I don't know. I guess we'll kick off with Southampton United. How do you think that one will go? Just quick thoughts.
I'm looking, but I really don't know because which United are we going to get? That's the question. You'd hope from a United perspective that they've turned the corner and they're ready to play at least with the same intensity and commitment as they did against Liverpool. But, if they turn in a bad performance, then the narrative quickly becomes that they only got up for the derby game and they need to kick up the arse just to perform. So I really don't know which United we're going to get. And I think that's what this game comes down to. But I think it's probably that or the Liverpool game maybe are the most intriguing games. And the Chelsea one, to be fair, because these are all teams that, in United's case, they need to continue with it, but the other two they need to bounce back. So for those reasons, I find it quite intriguing. And what I also want to do, just to add something as we're previewing all the top six, with the transfer window so close to being closed, I thought we'd maybe let the fans dream a little bit and come up with sort of ideal signings that we would think would work for these top six clubs. So obviously, we'll start with United. And I think it's no surprise. And I did read somewhere that talks are back on, but I think Frankie de Jong is the ideal Manchester United signing that they need right now. Especially, just imagine now what kind of, I don't know, as a United fan, I would have massive enthusiasm if all of a sudden our midfield, instead of being McTominay and Fred, was Casemiro and de Jong. That is worlds apart. And all of a sudden, if the commitment is there after the Liverpool game and that wasn't a one-off thing, and then you've got this guy coming in next to already, who I considered the best holding midfielder in the world last season, then surely the optimism is there for, top four. But if it really clicks, maybe even push further. But we have seen this story at United before. But I think de Jong, in terms of the qualities he brings, being able to receive the ball in tight spaces in midfield, which really complements Casemiro, I think he'd be the perfect signing for United. So interested to get your thoughts on the game and then what I just proposed with that as well.
Well, pretty much everyone's saying, can United back it up with a performance against a lower table team? So that's the biggest talking point. If they can't back it up, then obviously the narrative goes to, well, they can only really those players, those because on paper, that team should be challenging for top four at the minimum. On paper, I think everyone can agree on that. If they can't click and get up for these big games, or these big games, because you need to pick up maximum points on the home and away fixture against teams against Southampton's, those sorts of teams, then that just puts their top four hopes in jeopardy, let alone any higher aspirations. On the Frankie De Jong point, or De Jong, I don't. We need some Dutch people to tell us whether it's De Jong or De Jong. I hear people say De Jong. I don't know. They've been trying to get him for the last 2 months, and Barca just keep on saying no. And I've heard apparently the player himself wants to stay at Barca as well. He doesn't want to leave.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's not Barca, is it? It's him.
Yeah,
he's the one who's saying no. But does the Casemiro signing change that a little bit? Now he looks at that midfield and he gets to play next to someone like that.
Who knows? But I've also heard that there's rumours. Apparently, United are trying to sign Asensio from Real Madrid. So are they just?
That's a decent signing.
It's a decent signing. Asensio hasn't.
It's a squad player, really.
He had that. He was on the brinks of breaking into that starting 11. I think 3 or 4 years ago.
Well,
and then he had that injury. I'm not sure if it was an ACL or an ankle injury.
Yeah, it was a bad one. It was that 16-17 season, I think, where they beat Juve in the final. It was a big part of that team in the running, if I remember correctly.
He scored either the first goal or the winner or something, or the second goal to...
Well, I think they won that game comfortably, but first or second, one of the important ones. Yeah,
I think he might have scored to make it 2-1. I'm pretty sure it finished 4-1. But he scored to sort of break open the floodgates again, and then they quickly scored 2 goals, if memory serves me correct. But United just becoming Real Madrid light, or a retirement home for former Real Madrid players, because if that one goes through.
It's not a bad one to emulate, though, is it?
Yeah, but you're signing them. Look, Casemiro is 30, so he's in his prime. Varane, he's also 30, isn't he, or 29? So he's not past 30, I'm pretty sure. But the problem with him is
he's a cheeky young one.
Yeah, the problem with him is though that he's had injuries, and he can't stay consistently fit. But look, it could be interesting. And they're also trying to splash the cash for Anthony from Ajax. If
it'd be a good signing,
90 million.
But I just value. If they're willing to spend it, he's still a good signing. I just value the spine, especially when you're trying to build. So that's why I'd put a De Jong higher, and then probably I'd look at a striker after that, to be quite honest. But Anthony is a good player, so
yeah,
it's not a bad signing.
Well, let's see if they can back up the Liverpool result, and then I guess as things develop in regards to transfers, if I'm not mistaken, things generally tend to be done, especially these big ones. They tend to be done in that last week, maybe even the last 2 to 3 days, as teams get, I guess, more desperate and try to rush things through. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see it get done towards the very end of the window, one of those 11 p.m. signings, 1 hour before. Yeah, 1 hour before the window closes. So that brings us on to the next game. I guess it's on paper. I guess it's probably the biggest game of the weekend, which is Chelsea-Leicester. Chelsea also are obviously trying to sign one of Leicester's, I guess you'd say, best defenders in Fofana. So there is obviously a bit of pushback from Leicester, because I think he has 2 or 3 years left, or maybe even 3 years left. So Leicester don't need to sell him. Chelsea obviously they just seem like they want to sign absolutely everyone this season. I think they're in talks to sign Aubameyang as well, if I'm not mistaken. and they also want Gordon from Everton, which is an interesting one because
I
like
don't get that one.
they just got
Yeah, I don't
they just
get
got
it.
Gallagher
For
back,
the
so
price.
yeah.
Oh no, it's madness.
But yeah, like how do you see that game shaping up, and how do you envision or see, I guess, their transfers that they're trying to complete? Because they also got Koulibaly missing for this game. Don't forget that, since he received a red card
I know,
against
and
Leeds.
that's huge. And for him to get sent off in that situation is utterly ridiculous. Just madness, because he is the centre back that everything needs to sort of hinge on this season, and that's why if I'm talking about a transfer. I'm still looking at a centre back for Chelsea, even though in recent weeks I've lamented their lack of a striker. But Chelsea's history with strikers really worries me. So it's sort of, I think I said it a couple of weeks ago that, look, maybe Chelsea need to give up on a number 9 and just play with a fluid front three, which I think they're trying to do with the Sterling, Havertz, Mount sort of thing. I think Aubameyang for a cut price is a good signing, because he's a guy who gives you a different dimension. He's a guy who, at his best, can still play on the big stage and at a good level. And like I said, it's a cut price, so it's not a huge risk if you go for someone like that. So I think that would be a good signing. It's not top of the wish list though, and I'm sorry to be like a tease to all the Chelsea fans, but there's still a scenario where Jules Koundé ends up going to Chelsea, because he's still not registered at Barcelona. And if Barcelona maybe can't shift the players, they can't get in line with whatever regulations they have to meet, then he all summer, when they got Koulibaly, I'm thinking that's great. That's one half of your partnership done. If they could put Jules Koundé next to Kalidou Koulibaly, I think they actually have a really solid back two, and then you can make it a three around it, or you can play with a straight back four with that option. So if I was a Chelsea supporter, I'd still have my fingers crossed for that one. I guess in the Fofana transfer, they're kind of going for a guy who's a little bit like Koundé, but just not as polished for me. The benefit of Fofana is he has played a season or so in the Premier League. I know he was injured for pretty much all of last season, but the season before he was quite impressive. But he's still super raw, very physical, which is always great for the league. But he needs to be channeled in the right way and coached in the right way to really reach his potential. And that the price tags they're talking 70 million, 80 million, just madness. So you put a lot of pressure on a young player when you pay that much money for him. I mean, you only have to look at the goalkeeping situation at Chelsea and look at Kepa Arrizabalaga and how much they paid for him and how much pressure they maybe put on him. And he, up till this point, has cracked under the pressure, and we've never seen him live anywhere near up to that transfer fee. So it's dangerous doing that for a player who is unproven like Fofana. So yeah, and like you say, it adds that little extra dimension to this game. I see Chelsea winning it. While I've been impressed with Leicester this season in terms of football and in terms of personnel, there's so much going on around Leicester. Like this is almost a clash of the two most unsettled teams. Leicester have more recently become unsettled, but Chelsea, we've been talking about them all summer how unsettled they've been. So we've kind of got that aspect to it as well. But I think look, Tielemans still probably wants his move away. And if it's not now, he's probably playing half-assed till the end of. Well, I can't say half-assed. I can't say that about him. But like he's playing with one eye on leaving on a free in the summer. So look, I just think there's Leicester have like a really good team on paper, but I think a lot of those players have outgrown Leicester or want to move away, and that's worrying. It's worrying because while I think Leicester have played all right in patches and the football's been okay, I just think they're soft. They're a soft team. They concede goals in soft ways, and if they hit adversity when they already have one eye on a different club, I mean that can go downhill really quickly. So Huge game for both teams. I see Chelsea bouncing back. But you know what? Maybe their lack of number 9 means they can't take advantage of the way Leicester concede soft goals. And maybe the fact that they don't have Koulibaly at the back means that they're more susceptible to copping soft goals. So like pretty much any game in the Premier League, especially between a team that maybe has top half aspirations against a top 4 side, it's going to be an interesting one for sure.
Don't forget also Chelsea at one point we're trying to sign Frankie De Jong as well. So that I think that door could reopen. And then
I guess they need midfielders now that Kante's injured and Kovacic is injured and Jorginho's a bit lightweight. But like you'd say, when all of them are fit, like De Jong's great, but do they really need him? I don't know.
Yeah, it's sort of a similar issue that Liverpool have. Like you guys have a couple of midfielders that are, on the.
I like Chelsea's midfield better than ours.
But the thing is, like I think you guys have like 2 or 3 midfielders like that are injured. I think Keita is injured, and so is Thiago. Oxlade is.
When's Keita not injured? When's Oxlade not injured?
Yeah, exactly. Injured. So
Thiago the same.
Yeah, Thiago's had a couple of injuries at Liverpool as well. So
just in his career, in his whole career has been injury blighted.
Yeah. But yeah, look, it's a must win for both. I don't know. Chelsea's playing at home. I can see the result going their way. I'd be surprised if Chelsea lose that, but I could possibly see a draw on the cards as well for that one. Just because of, like you said, both teams are unsettled. You don't really know what to expect from both of them, especially after that Leeds loss. Like that threw a spanner in the works for me. Like Chelsea looked good, but up until that point. But yeah, that just sort of threw things around. The next game, Man City versus their bogey team, Crystal Palace, at Man City. So that's going to be an interesting one because Man City dropped points to Newcastle last week, and Crystal Palace, they kept Man City to 1 out of a possible 6 points last season. So, and over the last couple of seasons, they always seem to get a result against City, either in one of the 2 games or in both of the games. They always manage to either get a win or a draw most of the time. So this could be an interesting game where, once again, City drop points. Just because Crystal Palace are a solid team. They're a well-trained team, and they have the capability to hurt City. So you'd expect a bounce back from City, especially after 3-3 with Newcastle, and considering they're playing at home. But just because it's Crystal Palace and they have it in them, they have it in their, I guess you could say they have it in their DNA to get a result against City, I can see this being a draw.
You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking when we do the preview pods, instead of having the microphone in front of you like that, you should just have a crystal ball. And you're looking at all the scenarios, and it's the readings from Nev.
I can probably do like
mystical.
I can probably do like a visual effect. Yeah.
Look, I'm hoping that it's going to be a draw because we already need City to drop points. I think we're both hoping for that, and we're hoping maybe subconsciously we're hoping for a more open title race where there's not really a dominant team. But look, I honestly can't say it because I think City like playing against these kinds of challenges, despite Crystal Palace being a bogey team. But I feel like Palace somewhat used a lot of luck against Liverpool. Will luck be on their side if they approach the game against City in the same way? Remains to be seen. And let's not forget, City are much better at breaking down packed defences than Liverpool. So, and Liverpool went down to 10 men early in the second half in that game. So a lot of things went right for them on that night. And as a lot of things have to go right for you if you choose to play that way. But if you defend well and if you do play that way, you give yourself a chance to maybe snatch a 1-1 or even win the game 1-0. But it's just, I mean, you look at City. How do you keep out City for 90 minutes? Even if you do the Atletico last season, which they eventually lost the game, but they had two banks of five. And even when you look at that, you're still thinking, man, you fancy City to break this down eventually. Just a moment of brilliance. They did when Atletico changed it slightly, but they're just so good at approaching those tests, and I think it really helps City in the long run that a lot of teams like to play that way against them because I think it's less physically exerting. And the more I watch it, the more I think City don't like the vertical games. They don't like the games where it's end to end. They don't like the games where it's individual battles all over the pitch. Now, the flip side of that is City's players are so good, you expect them to win the individual battles anyway, and then you start looking at 4, 5, 6-0. But if you catch them on the right day, like I feel like Newcastle did, they made the game very vertical, and they made it that end-to-end sort of thing, and they won their battles. So, but to do that at the Etihad, it just seems a bridge too far for me for Palace, and I fully expect City to win this game fairly comfortably. But Palace are good at sitting in, so a 2 or 3-0 I'm expecting to see. But Palace defend well, then they give themselves a chance. In terms of the signing for Manchester City, it's hard. Well, it's not hard for me because I absolutely love this guy. And he solves a problem area that I think has been a problem area for City for years. But to add to a team like City, I mean, who do you get? They've already added Haaland. They don't need anything more. But Theo Hernandez from AC Milan, who in my opinion is the best left back in the world at the moment. If Man City got him, it would just be a wrap. There would be no weak areas on the pitch. Maybe the other centre back who plays next to Diaz might be another weak area, but weak, it's relative. So, and if they got the best left back in the world, they could put Cancelo at right back, or they could play Walker, or they could play Walker as another centre back. It just gives you so many options, and you've just added this physical and great ball playing and great driving left back, especially in the inside channels. I just think he'd be an absolute menace if he was on the City team, and another great fullback for Guardiola to work with, and on the left-hand side with a left foot rather than relying on Cancelo always with the right foot, even though he is exceptional when he has to play left back. I still prefer him as a right back, to be honest. But yeah, I think if they got him, it's game over.
The only thing with that one is I actually think they need a right back more so than a left back because they already signed a left back. They signed I can't, for some reason the surname Diaz comes to mind, but I don't think it is Diaz. But they did sign a
from Anderlecht, the Spanish footy.
Yeah, they did sign a left back this week or last week. So they've already got a backup left back.
But he's an obscure. He's not the best left back in the world, or one of the best left backs in the world. He's not coming in to change anything.
He's not ready made. So he's coming in to develop. And be an understudy to Cancelo. But I think they need a right back more so because Cancelo covers for Walker if Walker gets injured again. But I think then...
No, I think he's... Yeah, go on.
I think then you're then relying on your new left back who is a developing left back. So I think they need a backup right back and maybe a ready-made left back as well. But the only thing is if you buy a ready-made left back in Theo Hernandez, then how much does he actually play ahead of, or how many games does he get ahead of Cancelo and Walker? If they're both fully fit.
I think Walker's great, don't get me wrong, and he gives you an option of a defensive-minded right back who can cover the spaces behind, which is always a great option to have. But Theo Hernandez and João Cancelo are a different level to me than Kyle Walker. Kyle Walker is very good, but these two... João Cancelo, he can play either side, but I prefer him on the right-hand side. and Theo Hernandez at left back is fantastic. So I just put those two at a higher level than Kyle Walker. But Kyle Walker can also play as a centre back, like I said as well. So in those games you dominate and you're not really dealing with being pushed back, you can use Kyle Walker easily as a centre back.
Yeah. The one thing that I want to add on the game is, as opposed to last year, City do have a striker this time, Erling Haaland. So that could be interesting then how they break down those two banks with a striker this time. But then again, Crystal Palace have shown that they can deal with a big man up front when they've played Liverpool. So maybe Haaland gets a red card.
He was all bark and no bite that night. Mr. Nunez.
Yeah, Mr. Nunez. How much did he end up getting? 3 games or more?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen.
I think it ended up getting settled on 3 games. But yeah, maybe Anderson gets under Haaland's skin, and then we see another headbutt. Moving on.
Hopefully he gets him this time, Haaland. If he is going to do it, just give him one proper.
Yeah, like a proper Zidane. Just really quickly, while we're still on City, did you see that they actually played a friendly game against Barca on Tuesday night?
Oh no, I didn't see that.
Yeah, they played a friendly game in Barcelona, and they pretty much fielded their strongest 11, which was
Sometimes I see that kind of thing. If there's like no midweek games, obviously, or something like that, I see these two big sort of teams playing behind closed doors in a friendly game.
No, it was a charity game though. Like they. Yeah. So you know how like, and then it got me thinking, like, you know how last year we were talking about an all-star weekend for the EPL, like around the FA Cup weekend, like, but then that obviously requires them moving the FA Cup back to the last fixture of the season for the English season, at least, because Champions League,
which it should be, by the way.
Yeah, Champions League is always going to be the very last, but yeah, for the English season, FA Cup is the last game. Then that should open up the door for that, because if clubs are prepared to play friendlies in week 3 of the season with pretty much their strongest 11, then why wouldn't they be for something like an all-star weekend at the very end of the season to participate in like sort of fun football games and obviously like an all-star start, like 11v11. So yeah, that should be on the cards if you want to sort of get things rolling. That just sort of opened my mind in regards to that. Seeing those two big teams play each other, and for a charity event as well.
Yeah, well, I can say straight away, I think we know why the clubs wouldn't want to do it at any point of the season, because they want to protect their assets, which are their players, and they don't want them doing anything needless to get injured. They obviously don't like letting them go on international football either. Yeah. So, yes, from the club side, but really that sort of end of season idea is, for me, up to the players. Do the players want an extra sort of weekend to showcase in an all-star format? I think a lot of players might be up for that, as I think we discussed on one of the pods last year. So, yeah, but definitely interesting, and obviously got you thinking about that as a possibility.
Yeah, you know how you get those targeted Facebook, I guess, sort of ads, or yeah. I've been getting ones from like the MLS, and MLS do this goalkeeper one where I think they set 2 goals, like 20 or 30, and then like they can kick or throw at each other. I think there's like a 2-minute time limit as well. So yeah, that like, what, just have something like that as one of the mini games, so the goalkeepers are involved. Obviously, like we talked about, what things they can have, like crossbar challenge and free kick challenge and all that stuff. So yeah, well, Premier League, contact on the pod. We'll set you up with an idea for how the All-Star weekend should run.
They won't want to talk to us after I suggested the Super League returns
Oh
last year.
yeah, you're on their naughty list. You're not getting a Christmas card this year. Moving on to the next fixture, the next Saturday fixture. Arsenal Fulham. Arsenal playing at home. London derby as well, although one of the lower end London derbies. So I don't know. I expect Arsenal to keep on rolling on. I'd find it very surprising if they drop points, especially at home. Because one thing that I noticed from last season as well, and what they've been trying to do is engage with the fans more and create a better atmosphere at home, which sort of reminds me of the Mourinho Stamford Bridge fortress sort of days or analogy. Like Arteta, I believe is. I'm not saying that.
But
I'm not saying that Emirates is a fortress, but he wants to create that sort of atmosphere. I'm not sure whether they can, because Stamford Bridge is a very compact ground. But like, what manager wouldn't want to create that sort of atmosphere at their home ground, where it's intimidating to come there? And you hear a lot of the stories from these old players, like when they'd come to Old Trafford or when they'd come to Highbury, the game was already lost in the tunnel before walking out. Like when you'd hear the crowd, when you'd look over to see who you're playing. I'm not saying that they're at that level yet, but they're probably trying to build that. And going on from last season, I don't think that they lost many games at home last season. Like, they obviously lost to City and Liverpool, but they beat Tottenham. They did lose to Chelsea at home, but that was in the second game week when they still had like those COVID issues and all that stuff. But they pretty much beat. From memory, they pretty much beat everyone at home that they needed to beat. So, yeah, I think that if they can keep on rolling on, like, they can maybe create that sort of mentality, at least at their home ground. Because, for a big team playing at home, you need to pretty much always pick up maximum points. Like, you can, I guess you can afford to get, like, have draws against the bigger teams like your Cities and your Liverpools when you're not at their level quite yet. But yeah, against a team like Fulham, it needs to be 3 points.
First of all, we're not putting Liverpool and City in the same bracket until Liverpool give us a reason this season to be in the same bracket. To be quite honest,
You're being very harsh on them.
Well, I've come to expect better. Klopp's called them mentality monsters or giants, so they need to live up to that right now, and they're not. Just on the home point, I had such a reaction to that comment, not because there's any differences between Stamford Bridge and the Emirates. I think that neither of those places are Anfield, and I'm surprised you didn't go to Anfield as your example as well, especially after watching All or Nothing and the way Arteta built up Anfield. He almost lost that game for everyone before they even went there.
Just quickly,
which I thought was crazy, but yeah, go on.
I just want to. Anfield is, during the day, it doesn't create the same atmosphere. Anfield is a night ground. Like, if you could play all your games at night at Anfield, I reckon you would have a much higher win percentage at your home ground, because you create an amazing atmosphere at night, especially compared to day.
I actually agree with that. I think, like, it's not a consistent great atmosphere. It's always a very good atmosphere, but not like a Dortmund consistent, always great atmosphere every game you go. But the Champions League nights at Anfield are something else. They're a different level for me. And yeah, like those 4 p.m. kickoffs when you get into winter, like when Arsenal went there last season, what I was referring to. I found that whole little bit about All or Nothing very interesting, obviously, about how Arteta approached going to Anfield. He was very vulnerable with his players, but I guess, I don't know, him giving them that message sort of beat them before they went there, but that's a story for another day, I guess. But yeah, it wasn't because Stamford Bridge is so much better in terms of generating an atmosphere than the Emirates. It's because that fortress under Mourinho was different level. Chelsea had a 77 game unbeaten run at home under Mourinho from the first time he was there until like nearly the end of the first season he went back. So to get to that level, something pretty ridiculous. Liverpool was starting to sniff it under Klopp a few years ago. But yeah, I don't think they'll ever be beaten. And I think across all competitions, not all competitions, across Real Madrid, Inter, Chelsea, over that span in league games, Mourinho had like something stupid like 160 something game unbeaten run at home in the league, which is just incredible across so many different clubs. Absolutely ridiculous. So that's why I sort of had a reaction to that, because that stat, I don't know if it'll ever be beaten. But in terms of the game, I'm completely with you. Just I'd be very shocked if Arsenal don't win the game. They're playing very well. Obviously, you want to see that keep rolling, and I don't see any reason why it won't keep rolling this coming weekend. And I guess it'll be interesting to get your point on this one, because I have the couple of transfers. I have, and also I don't think need anything major, but I was watching PSV in their qualifiers against first Monaco and then Rangers. And I know a mate of mine told me a while ago that Arsenal were interested, I think, in Gakpo at left wing. And he looked like a pretty good player, pretty raw. I would sort of, in terms of the talent, I would sort of compare him to like a Sam Maximan. He has that impact. He can run past people. He's physical, but the end product was really lacking in all the games I saw. But he's young, obviously, so. But it was his teammate Ibrahim Sangare in holding midfield who caught my attention for a club like Arsenal. I don't think he'd be overly expensive, but he's very much in the Partey mold. He might be bigger than Partey, taller anyway, and is very much, I hold my position. When I get the ball, I don't do anything fancy. I don't do anything stupid. I give it to the better players around me, and then I have the discipline to hold my position, and I'm a physical presence in the midfield. So he was the player I was looking at. And because you need a backup, I think he fits that profile. He's not, I don't think he'd go to Arsenal. He'd expect to start some games, especially with European football. And now you have that opportunity to start him in some games. But I don't think he's at that level where he comes in and he expects to be playing every week. I think you could make that clear to a guy like this. The other guy who I think would slot into the first team, and I had a little love in with him last week on the review pod, or this week on the review pod, but I think Ruben Neves would be a fantastic signing to slot into that Granit Xhaka role.
I think we made an inquiry for either Neto or Neves to Wolves, which I think both were rejected. I'm pretty sure it was Neto though. But yeah, and then
very different player.
Yeah, but I think later in last season, I think we tried to make an inquiry into him, but apparently Neves said something about like a little bit discriminatory against Arsenal, or not discriminatory, deflammatory against Arsenal, because they remember how they versed them back to back.
I remember that.
Yeah, I think he may have made a comment
about the celebrations.
Yeah, so who knows whether but like considering that now he can see like that they're developing on the right path, maybe he might have a little bit more of an open mind to them. Obviously, like the player that is like grabbing the most headlines as a potential Arsenal target is Yuri Tillemans. The only thing now is like Xhaka is sort of, because he's playing more of an advanced role, and he's obviously been playing in that system, in Arteta's system now for at least this newer system for the last year, where he's playing more advanced instead of deep lying. He's shown a different side to his game, and he's actually, if he continues along this path, he will sort of become undroppable, because he does provide. He has a very good range of passing, and I do like what I'm seeing with this more advanced role for Xhaka. So yeah, I'm not sure whether I'm not sure. Like Neves probably would replace him, but he would need time to adjust. But I don't think Tielemans. If Tielemans is signed, I don't think he replaces Xhaka right away. Like he's not an automatic starter if he signs.
Yeah, I'm hot and cold on Tielemans as well. I still rate him better than Xhaka, but like you say, if Xhaka does continue this, then you might have a reason to rate him higher than we have been. I need to see it for longer than we have so far, but early signs are encouraging for sure. Ruben Neves, I think, is a different class. I think he'd slot straight in. He's been playing years in the Premier League. He knows what it's all about. He's more mobile than Xhaka, but has as good, if not better, range of passing. I haven't really seen Neves all that much in the number 8 role, but that would be interesting to see. But even if not, it could work in a sort of partnership where Partey does the sort of defensive work, but Neves is there to pick up the ball off the defenders and look to dictate play from there. And look, Neves is pretty good against the ball as well. It's not like you've got a Christian Eriksen next to Thomas Partey or anything like that. And just one little note before I guess we get off Arsenal. I have been really pleased to see, and I don't know, this really annoys me for some reason, and I know the reason because I don't like bad winners, and it's not necessarily bad winning, but I don't like it when the manager after every game, goes to his coaching staff and starts hugging them and starts doing all the high fives, especially before they've shaken hands with the opposition manager who's just lost. Now, I'm no saint when it comes to shaking hands. When I lose, I'm a terrible loser, and I sometimes can't stomach the shaking of hands after. But if I win, always I go straight to the other coach and shake their hands if they want it, because I think like winning in the right way is more important to me. Because if you're a bad loser, it's like, well, at least you care. Like you shouldn't do it that way, but at least you're showing that you care in that moment. But I don't know. But this season, Arteta, he hasn't over-celebrated after games. Arsenal haven't over-celebrated. And what that shows me is I think they're focused on a bigger picture. They're focused on, we have an objective this season, and we're going for top 4. And if it all pans out, we might be going for the title. And they can see that bigger picture, and they're not... I wouldn't say they were getting carried away, but they were celebrating a lot last season for wins like that, which is fine because they're a young group, like you say, but at the same time, if you've got bigger things to go for, you don't celebrate wins like that,
I think it was, at least last season, it was more because they were always in that top 4 race. So, like, some of those, like, games were big wins, especially, like, going to Aston Villa away. Like, that's a difficult place to go and grind out a win. Going to Leicester away as well. So
quickly, the only thing I'm saying is that sort of reaction shows me it's kind of unexpected. You didn't expect to be in this race. And I think teams with a better mentality show that, hey, we expected to be here and we're taking care of business.
Yeah, but I think with that, it's also that he's trying to, at least last season, he's trying to build that sort of team cohesion, so getting them to celebrate together and getting them to celebrate with the fans as well after the game, or at least go over and acknowledge them, especially for away games.
Definitely, you got to do that anyway, for sure. Yeah, win, lose or draw, you have to.
Yeah, so I think last season it was more for the team building, but also on your point about like celebrating with, I guess, your staff. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't see it as that big of a deal. Like, I see it as maybe more of a convenience. Like, your staff is right there, so you go and, like, shake their hand or whatnot straight away because they're just right there. And then you go over to the opposing manager. I don't know. Like, different people might have different habits, I suppose. So yeah, I don't think it's too big of a deal in my eyes, at least. So long as you go over and shake the opposing manager's hand. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it should be done in that order. Shake the opposing manager's hand, and then you can go off and celebrate with your team and whatnot. But like you say, I don't think it is a big deal. So
yeah. And look, I guess that Well, do you want to touch on West Ham just really quickly? Just because they're winless, like they're bottom of the table, and they're facing Aston Villa, who also they haven't gotten off to the best start. They have they do have 2 wins. No, they don't. They have one win. Yeah, they beat Everton last week 2-1. So I don't know. West Ham, they seem to be faltering in the Premier League so far. I think they did qualify for the Europa League, if I'm not mistaken, or the Conference League, because they had some kind of qualifying game midweek, which they won. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, like West Ham going away to Aston Villa. That's man. Moyes could be in trouble if they don't pick up points there.
I think last season he earned a little bit more time than this, but I will say what I've seen from West Ham has been quite worrying. They got a lot of players out of form. What kind of toll did last season and the shortened pre-season have on them? That'll be interesting, but we're 3 games in terms of who should be worried and who shouldn't be worried. I'd be a little concerned if I was West Ham, but I think they played a lot above what the expectation was last season. I think they have good enough players to get out of this, but you're right. I mean, if they're in a somewhat of a relegation battle come maybe 10, 12, 15 games in, then they might say, hey, we've got better players than this. Maybe it's the manager who's not making it work, and that's how it works down there. So, yeah, I've seen a bit of West Ham. They haven't impressed me at all. So, yeah, and same sort of for Villa, but Villa kind of have the excuse that their marquee centre-back signing is already out for the season. So that's got to put a dampener on it straight away. And the opening day loss at Bournemouth, not what you want. And then obviously when that kind of stuff happens, now you start to see the little clickbait pieces. Hey, Steven Gerrard's got exactly the same record as Gary Neville at this stage. I think they were doing that with Klopp and Rodgers at one stage. So, they love the clickbait. So that sort of stuff starts to come out of the weeds when this happens. But this is probably not a game that I'm going to be watching. I'll be honest.
It's not one that I'm particularly interested in. Like, I'll check the highlights, but yeah. That it'll be interesting. I'm also not on that train to start burying managers, especially after the first 3 to 5 weeks. Just because things can turn around. They can turn around majorly going into that Christmas period. I know this year's a little bit different with the World Cup. But I think generally, if you're going to sack a manager, I'm not saying Moyes is going to get it, but like, it should be reviewed probably around late October, November, going into December, after 10 to 12 game weeks, to see how they're going. Not rush into things after 3 or 4. So yeah, let's see if West Ham can turn it around, or if Gerrard can sort of start building a little bit of momentum after last week's win. And brings us into Forest, Tottenham going away to the newly promoted team. I think Forest, they got 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss. Their one win was against West Ham. I don't know, Tottenham, they're not playing particularly well. Forest, that ground, to me, when I saw it, like when Arsenal played there and also when Liverpool played there last year in the FA Cup, it did look a little bit of an intimidating ground to go to. So that, I don't know, we'll see if they can sort of replicate that atmosphere and how Tottenham can deal with a newly promoted team.
Always has the potential to be a tough game when a big boy goes to one of the newly promoted teams, especially with an atmosphere like you got there. Place was rocking for that first game back against West Ham and sort of drove those players onto the result. Forest have made a shitload of signings, and some of them quality players. Yeah, some of them are actually quality players, but that'll be really interesting to see what kind of team he goes with for this weekend, because they've made all the signings. But I think even last week at Everton, after they beat West Ham, he kept pretty much the same team, and they got a point away at Goodison. So he might keep the same team again, and it might be a sort of West Ham game again. And if Tottenham can't start fast, and no indication from Tottenham this season has shown me that they're able to do that yet, because I haven't seen it. I haven't even seen them play well for a sustained sort of 20, 30-minute patch. They've been thoroughly underwhelming. But look, when you've got Harry Kane, when you've got Son, you're always a chance. So interesting game, has the potential to be a banana skin for Tottenham, and I guess we're both hoping that it is, because we don't want Tottenham picking up more points, especially when I don't feel they even deserve points at the moment. But there was one interesting thing that was brought up in one of the pods. I think it was maybe the Gavin Jules show or something. It was brought up by Don Hutchinson, who said these players have, by all accounts, had a grueling preseason. They got off a plane to go to Singapore, and Conte had them doing 42 box-to-box runs as soon as they got off the plane. So it may be a case that they're still tapering in terms of their physicality, and we're just seeing the effects. While they're supremely fit, they're not sharp at the moment. We haven't seen them sort of get to that peak that they were looking to get to. So maybe that's a reason why they've started slowly in terms of performances. And if that is the reason, then that's kind of scary, because they've picked up seven points from a possible 9 in this period where they're not exactly sharp. So, but that's just a theory. It may not end up that way. The Tottenham that we've been watching may just because Tottenham just can't play very well, to be quite honest. So yeah, definitely potential for a banana skin. And when I look at like the signings, I think Tottenham need, it's either a centre back, but I didn't prioritise that position because I guess they got Longley in. Romero's been performing really well, but when push comes to shove, do I really want Eric Dyer in the centre of my central three? Probably not. But I ended up prioritising right wing back because I'm just not a fan of Emerson Royale at all. And the two players I came up with who could be good signings there, the first one is Denzel Dumfries from Inter, who I'm pretty sure Chelsea were linked with. But Chelsea have been linked with everyone, like you said. He's a fantastic right wing back. I think he'd give you a lot more than what Emerson Royale gives you there. But the other one I was thinking of as well is, and this one is a bit of a scratchy, a bit of a flyer, but I don't think it would cost too much to do. And that's Sergio Roberto from Barcelona. I think in terms of what Tottenham somewhat need, he gives you a different dimension to that sort of wing-back, full-back position, where he's more a central midfielder who would like to come inside and help the midfielders play and sort of
like
help
Zinchenko.
keep everything... Yeah, sort of keep everything neat and tidy, keep the ball moving in there. And I think the midfield could really be helped by a player like that. And, he has his injury problems, so I don't think he'd cost the earth and the moon. And we know Barca are trying to get rid of players so they can register new players. So maybe that's one you could look at. But I think first choice would be Dumfries, because I think he has the potential to be very good to world class. So, yeah.
Well, I hope they don't sign anyone and don't improve their squad. So, but they've already brought in 6 or 7 new signings. So
a lot of youngsters like Jed Spence and players like that who were expected to come through eventually. Maybe he starts getting some game time if Emerson Royale. Well, I don't think he's played very well, but maybe if Tottenham start losing or drawing games.
Well, Jed Spence has experience playing at Forest. He was there last season on loan, so he knows the ground. It could be interesting if Conte actually gives him his start there. So, yeah. I think that would be a wrap for the preview. So Did
we talk about Liverpool? Or are you counting what we did at the start?
Oh, Liverpool. Oh, yeah, we did skip over them. Huh. But we sort of spoke about them at the start. think, but we didn't really go into too much detail. We didn't talk about signings really.
Yeah, and I guess that's why I was tipped off to why we hadn't talked about.
Yeah, I'll like when we were going through Tottenham, I was like, did we talk about signings? Because there was one that I heard this morning, and it's a player that we've already spoken about that's linked to two teams, and now Liverpool's linked to him. Frankie. He's being passed around like the village bicycle, pretty much, in terms of transfer rumours.
He's a good player. I'd be happy if the other two clubs can't get him. Then I'd be happy to have him at Liverpool, especially with the midfield problems that we have at the moment. He wasn't one of the ones I had written down though, but yeah, I would like to see him.
It would be an interesting one because, does he suit the Liverpool style? Because I don't really see him pressing from the front too much at Barcelona. But he does sort of have it in him because he did it at Ajax.
Actually, it's almost a reversal for me when I watched Frankie de Jong. At Ajax, he was more the holding, and that's where I liked him best. And at Barca, they kind of use him more box to box. Obviously, Barca's counter press hasn't been as good as Liverpool's in recent seasons, but I think he's got the ability to do that. But I'd rather. And look, this goes back into the Klopp being not adaptable and not flexible in his formations. But I would prefer to see him and Fabinho play almost as a double pivot. And when we have the ball, we almost do what Real Madrid did with Casemiro and get Fabinho out of the way and let De Jong have space in that area so that he can dictate our play and I think give us better control of games and possession, especially because I saw a stat the other day that us and City are the two clubs who have the most possession in the league. I think 70-odd%. So small sample size, I know, but that's sort of what you'd expect to see from the two, what were meant to be the two best clubs going into the season. So, look, if we did get him, would Klopp use him like that? I'd be interested to see. But I think he's multi-talented, multi-dimensional. I don't like him as much as a box-to-box, but he can do it and is probably a better option than maybe anything we have in that position. Yeah, probably anything that we have in that position at the moment. So I know Thiago's a great option when fit, but that's always the qualifier with Thiago. So he's almost like a better option just because he's more available and does similar things to Thiago anyway.
I think the biggest sticking point with De Jong is, though, I think I saw that apparently he's like one of Barca's highest earners. He's on like 400 grand a week or 450 grand a week. So like, not only does he sacrifice, it doesn't fit Liverpool. So like and you just signed Salah. Wait, what did we say last week? He's getting like 350. So as a player, like if I was getting 450 a week and then Liverpool came in and said, look, we'll offer you, I don't even know if they'd offer him 300, to be honest, because it's not really in Liverpool's nature.
Still too much.
Maybe 250.
Yeah, Thiago came in and was on 200 straight away. So I think he could swing 220, something like that.
Maybe 250 max. So like he's getting almost half of what he's getting in Barca. I'm not sure if that's pre-tax or post-tax, and I'm not sure like what the tax systems are in Spain compared to England. So like even like let's just say that's before tax. Like what if then after tax he gets like 300k in Spain, and then in England it would drop down to like 150. Like that's massive. It's massive. So I don't know. That's probably why he doesn't want to go to Man United or go to Chelsea, because they can't meet his wages. So yeah, that's
those two. I feel like those two clubs can, especially United. If
United
can, want to throw money at something, they do.
They can, but they probably don't want to. And I think the other sticking point is that Barca owe him wages, so they want the transfer fee plus for the incoming club to pay the owed wages to him as well, which I think are about 15 million or something. Because he took half pay for since the COVID season. So for the past like 2 seasons, he's been getting half pay or something like that. So it would be a great signing for you guys. it would be a great signing for any of those three teams that are interested in him. But I don't know. I just think there's too many sticking points to the deal, and I don't think that your Liverpool's transfer mentality, transfer policy, I suppose.
The wage structure in
Wage
particular.
structure, yeah, doesn't quite align with De Jong. So I can't see that one getting over the line. So you guys, you're gonna have to look elsewhere. So did you have someone in mind?
Yeah, so just before we sort of finish the preview and take a little break, the three that I had, and I've heard a little bit of rumblings about this, but Brozovic was one that I had, who I would really fancy getting into
That'd be a good one.
Anfield. I really like Brozovic, and he plays the holding role for Inter, but I think I've seen enough of him to suggest he's versatile enough to play either next to Fabinho or as one of the central midfielders. I like his energy. I like that he's reliable on the ball. He would fit into Liverpool's midfield pretty comfortably, I think. The other one who would probably give us a different dimension in midfield would be someone like Milinkovic-Savic from Lazio. I think he would want to get out of Lazio, to be quite honest. Lazio haven't made any sort of major moves this summer. They've still got him and Immobile. They're the two main guys, but he could give us the dimension of arriving into the box. He's built like a brick shithouse, so he comes in and looks ready to deal with the physicality of the Premier League. So for me, those two from Serie A for midfield. And if it's not midfield, and this is something that we've talked about, but I saw a link today linking, and I guess it's just transfer talk maybe, but United were linked with the move for Benjamin Pavard from Bayern Munich. Now, I think in the past there have been a few rumblings that Pavard maybe wants to play centre-back a little bit more than he does. But I just think it would be really healthy for Liverpool to, A, get in a defensive-minded right-back who can give you a different option to Trent, B, give you competition for Trent even, when Trent doesn't want to concentrate and doesn't want to focus on his defensive duties, maybe say, hey, we have this other guy who can play. And then C, maybe give you an option to be versatile with Trent and start putting him in central midfield. So for those reasons, I think if he's somewhat on the market, Pavard might be an interesting one for Liverpool to go for as well.
That would be an interesting one. And yeah, like now that you mention it, who is the competition to Trent? Because like you have Tsimikas who's competition to Robertson.
It's Milner. Milner's our backup right back.
And Gomez.
And I guess Gomez, but at the moment he has to play centre back, I guess. But yeah. So
Gomez. Yeah, that's insane actually that you guys have no backup right back, and Trent has actually been fit for the last 3-4 seasons as well. Had no major injuries.
Yeah, I think he had one sort of minor injury that kept him out for a month or 6 weeks or something. Yeah.
So Pavard would be an interesting one. And I think Bayern do have a couple of right backs there as well. Like they're not obviously they're like in development, I suppose.
Well, for me, selfishly as well, I would love to see Kimmich have to go back to right back because I like him so much better at right back. But also, he's a good central midfielder.
Yeah. Also on the Savage point, I think Arsenal made a 40 or 50 million euro bid for him that was rejected, if I'm not mistaken, this week or last week. So I'm actually not sure how prepared Lazio are to sell him, or maybe not for that price. Maybe they wanted 60. I can't remember the exact details of it. Maybe they just want more for him.
I wouldn't be surprised. He's one of their two best players, obviously, and he's definitely their most expensive player, their prized asset because of Immobile's age. So
yeah,
no doubt.
Brozovic would be also a really interesting one, but he's the same age as Henderson and Fabinho. Like he's already past 30, so you're sort of signing a player that has the same age issues that your midfield already has. So that's the only issue that I have with that one. As great of a player he is.
That one could also be a plus because of that. You get him at a cheaper price, which I always like. I always like looking at the market for, well, this guy's undervalued just because he's 30 odd years old. Let's get him.
Yeah,
But
and
that one's dependent on price. If they're asking something ludicrous for someone who's the same age of the midfielders you already have, yeah.
yeah, and I guess now that you have Perisic in England, you could get two mates playing in England, although different cities. So, but
Yeah.
it could be a slight lure because
Flight.
they'd at least be playing in the same country. So, and you got Kovacic as well playing for Chelsea. So like that trio, I guess, of veterans that play for Croatia, like there could be. I don't know. You could maybe use it as a little bit of a lure, but I don't know. It depends how comfortable he is at Inter because there was rumblings a couple of seasons ago for him to go to Real possibly, which obviously didn't go through if I can remember correctly. But yeah, hugely underrated player Brozovic. He's like always on the like first name on the team sheet for Croatia. Like he's like as important as Modric is for Croatia, but in a different role, obviously.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, so that brings a wrapper to the preview. And we originally thought this would go for like 20 minutes, half an hour, and we've gone for an hour. So
Never does.
yeah, we need better time management. We're gonna take a quick break and then we will be back to discuss our first team. Hopefully, we can get that done in 40-50 minutes. Hopefully,
Let's do it.
let's do it. And we are back after that quick break. We will be going into our first team of the past 2 decades. Caleb, I'm going to let you run with this one because this is your this is your little baby, this is your little concoction. So I'll let you take the lead, my friend.
So I figured we'd have a lot of overlap on this first team, and given that we're somewhat on a time deadline, I thought I'll name you my entire starting 11, and you just say yes if you have the same player in your first team, or no if you don't. And then from there, we'll go through the players that we have the same in the first team, and then we'll go through the players that we had different. So, all good?
All good.
All good. In my first team of the last 18 years from the start of the 04-05 season, I have, in a 4-3-3 formation, Manuel Neuer, Philip Lahm, who we gave all... Yep, okay, there's one. Philip Lahm, who we said from last week, so I know you don't have him there. You have Dani Alves. Sergio Ramos.
Yep.
I have Carlos Puyol, but I know you don't. Marcelo, I also know you don't. Obviously, Messi.
Yep.
Iniesta, I know you don't. Xabi Alonso, I know you don't. Modric, I know you do.
Yep. How did you know?
How did you know? Ronaldo.
Yep.
And I have Suarez up front.
Yeah, I don't have him. Wait, so who's your midfield? Xabi Alonso.
Iniesta, Alonso, and Modric.
Okay, yeah. So we only have one that overlaps there. I went for a.
Wow, you didn't have Suarez in any of your 3 teams. Madness.
Yeah, I know. Look, I probably could have gone. I probably could have at least put him in my third team ahead of David Villa, but I don't know. Growing up, like I sort of, you know how
fundamental.
Huh? Yeah, but you know how growing. All right, so I know I think he's only like what 10 years older than us, but you know when we were kids, we always used to have like those role models or whatnot. Like he was a player that I looked up to when I was, I think, like 13, 14. So when I still had an imagination as a teenager, as a kid. And now that I'm older, like I don't look at footballers as role models anymore because I'm either the same age as them or I'm older than them. So, and Suarez, I think he's only like what 2 or 3, 4 years older than us, if I'm not mistaken. So I never considered him a role model. So I guess David Villa probably is there as a more of a sentimental pick, but he has his merits as well. Like.
Definitely.
We've obviously already mentioned all his achievements. I'm pretty sure he's won every trophy that he could have won in the game as well. World Cup, Euro, league title, Champions League, Spanish Cup as well. Everything that you can win, I'm pretty sure he's won. And yeah, all-time leading Spain goal scorer. So I'm not going to defend my position anymore. I've already done that. But yeah,
you don't need to. David Villa was hugely, very close to being in my third team.
And I think if he didn't have that major injury, I think it was a knee injury, I think he would have kicked on for another year or two at Barcelona. So it's a shame that injury sort of derailed his career a little bit earlier than what it should have been. But yeah, it happens. But yeah, so
right close for sure.
Yeah, I'll go through my team then. Neuer obviously overlaps. Probably the greatest goalkeeper of the past 10, 15 years. I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I can't believe I don't have Buffon in there because he was always up there as like the second best or even the best, alongside Neuer. But I guess Neuer's achievements, especially considering he's won a Champions League, multiple Champions Leagues, that probably puts him ahead of Buffon. But I can't believe I don't have Buffon in my second or third team. But I guess the 2 goalkeepers that I do have, they're...
Yeah, well, I was going to say Buffon v Czech is the argument for me.
Yeah.
I can't see Buffon above Casillas or Neuer personally. Although he was... 06 does fall in this category, so he was a World Cup winner, but I think if you did it 25 years, then Buffon has a legitimate case of first team.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just him or Czech.
Yeah, we've already discussed like Danny Alves and Philip Lahm are like a 1-2. So either one of those can go in your first or second team. I've got Sergio Ramos, and I've got John Terry to partner him. And I got Ashley Cole as my left back.
Wow. No, but to be fair, you did the last 20 years, didn't you?
But not even that though. Like even when he moved to Chelsea, after
No,
that
I know.
Invincible season, even after he moved to Chelsea, he's still considered the best Premier League left back ever. So
He was comfortably in my shortlist, even taking out that Invincible season, and I can see why, if the Invincible season is included, he has an argument for first team. But for me, not including that, he had no argument for first team. Maybe third team at best.
There was just a long period of time where he was the best left back in the world, for the time period that we're talking about.
Yeah, maybe but him and Evra was a conversation as well, just in the Premier League alone.
Yeah,
and then the guy who picked up the mantle, Marcelo, was the guy who won all the Champions League trophies.
Yeah,
so
I
couldn't.
I know, but
when you win 5 Champions Leagues, 4 of which that you're a major part of, I can't look past you. That's crazy.
I just think Ashley Cole's a better player, and he, besides winning anything with England, and we obviously know the problems that England had during that sort of golden generation or whatnot, with them not being able to click as a team. He's won everything that he can win, and yeah, I think like a good 5 or 6 year period from I guess for me, if you take it from the Invincibles period, maybe to like 2010, 2011, so like almost 10 years, he was considered like the best left back in the world. Marcelo then comes in after the fact, so like either of them can have an argument, but like I've got Ashley Cole and Marcelo in like my first team and my third team. So, but as a player, I just think Ashley Cole offers more and is better. Like, especially from a defensive standpoint, I think he's better.
I can give you that.
Yeah,
definitely not in possession. Marcelo is different animal.
I know. Like,
so good.
And I think Marcelo, he started to sort of make that transition as like he at least like the last couple of years, he started to play a little bit more infield rather than overlapping. So he started to make that sort of left or right back playing a little bit more centrally and like getting involved in center mid. He started
what we talked about with Danny Alves last week.
and Philip Lahm as well. Like
yeah, of course.
And so I've got Casemiro as my defensive mid. And I think he's done it for a long enough period of time, and won enough in that time, like in the past, 6 or 7 years, that he warrants this position. Because I can't think of a better defensive mid. Like, you have your Fabinhos, your Fernandinhos. Fernandinho would have been a good shout. Busquets as well, but Busquets I put in my second team just so I could keep him along that side, along that trio of Xavi and Iniesta. But yeah, I've got Casemiro in there. If Casemiro had only, like, for instance, if he only signed for Real Madrid last season and like won one Champions League, or like and only had like 2 or 3 seasons, then he wouldn't have been in there. But considering he's won 5 Champions Leagues and he's shown, I think it was that first Man City game where he was missing, where he didn't play, and like the performance was night and day between the first performance and the second performance, and it just showed how integral of a part he was to the way that Real Madrid play. And I know that he wasn't obviously the one that popped up with the goals, but if you look at the overall 90 minutes, or they went to extra time, didn't it? 120 minutes. Yeah, he's an integral part to how they play. I've obviously got Modric in my midfield, and the surprise one. Do you want to have a stab at it? I'll give you 2 guesses who I have alongside him. He has an insanely high peak, but didn't have the longevity. And he could play in the front three.
Ooh.
More,
And is it Ronaldinho?
yeah, Ronaldinho.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Come
I,
That's not a curveball. I think you'd have Ronaldinho in the
yeah.
first
Look,
team.
even if I think I'm not sure if I've said this before, like on the podcast, but I've said it. I've said it to like you and Matthias and other friends. Like for me, he's probably like eye test. He is a better player. He's the best player of all time. Like eye test. For me, he's better than Messi in terms of skill. He's better than Maradona. He's better than Pele. He's better than Ronaldo in terms of his skill. The only thing that's missing from his game is longevity. He had an insanely high peak of those 3 to 4 seasons from the 2002 World Cup to maybe the end of 2006 when they won the Champions League. And I think around that time he started to fall off because he didn't. Everyone expected that Brazil team in 2006 to win, but he didn't. From memory, he didn't exactly come into that tournament full of form. Like he started to sort of drop off towards the end of that season because he didn't exactly have a big showing in that Champions League final. I'll probably need to rewatch it because it was like 16 years ago.
He was pretty great in the semis against Milan in that 06.
And
it was awesome.
And Chelsea in the quarters, I think, where he absolutely bulldozed John Terry. Like this guy had absolutely everything. Like in terms of his actual skill and technique, it's probably the best that I've ever seen. Like the only player that I'd mention that comes close to his first touch is Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp probably has one of the best first touches that I've ever seen, but Ronaldinho's it's at that level. He can dribble past anyone. He can dribble with like this flair. It's not, and he had no, like whenever you watched him, it was like every week. It's almost like he came up with something new. But yeah, it's just a shame that he didn't last 10, 15 years the same way that we've seen Messi and Ronaldo be at their peak for 10, 15. Ronaldo almost 20 years. Like I'm not sure if he's still at his peak, but he's around there. But yeah, I can't not leave him out if we're talking about a team over the last 20 years, even though he only had like 3 or 4 seasons where he was like absolutely unstoppable. My front three.
Before you go on, I want to add my little 2 cents on Ronaldinho, who's maybe my favorite footballer I've ever seen. So
yeah, go ahead.
If I had to try and put it into sort of summary, I would agree with your point about it seems like he came up with something new every week is probably the one that resonates the most with me. Because I probably wouldn't say he had a better first touch than a Messi, a Bergkamp, whoever you want to put with the great first touches, because they all have fantastic first touch. But he had a more exciting first touch. He did more things with his first touch than probably, to your point, the only guy you would put close to that is a Dennis Bergkamp in terms of the excitement you could generate from a first touch. I know there's been greats who can do that, and then he blended it with the physicality. He could run through people. He could outpace people. He was so strong, so good in the air, could do absolutely everything. And then also those flair moments, those tricks, they actually had an intention. It wasn't Ronaldo in 08 or 07 doing... Exactly. It wasn't Ronaldo doing stepovers in the corner flag. There was one, the one that always sticks to my mind. This guy is the best mixtape player maybe ever. I can't definitively say that he's a better eye test player than a Maradona or a Pele, because I would have had to live through that time and watch it all. But in terms of our time, definitely. And the one that sticks to my mind is the ball sort of bobbling between, it's him and 2, I think, Betis players. And it's bobbling, and then he finally starts to juggle it between them and get it around them. And then he flicks it up onto his damn chest, holds it there, and walks away from the 2 tackles. There's 2 players, and he walks away from both of them, and then just plays an easy pass out of the pressure. The guy was unbelievable. What a player.
There's a similar one with that. I think when he's trying to bring the ball down between Gattuso and Pirlo, and they like both of those players are trying to. I think they're sort of juggling between touches, and I think he finally wins the ball back by Scorpion kicking it behind him and bringing it down. Yeah, and to do it against like those two as well, like especially out muscling Gattuso, because he was known as that sort of that bulldog in the midfield in that in the mid 2000s. One of the moments that I remember as well, and I know it was I think it was a group stage game, but I remember him scoring the winning goal against AC Milan. I think it was in like 04 or 05 in the group stages, where like in like the 89th minute, where he just switches it over to his left foot, and just from around 18 yards, he just smashed it into the top left corner against Dida. And then like I can remember that, like just like the way that he just like drops the shoulder and just switches the ball over to his weaker foot as well. Absolutely amazing player. And like just recently, I think I told you, like I saw a quote where he said he said something like, if you wanted me to be at my peak for 20 years or 15 years like Messi and Ronaldo, you would have had to have banned alcohol and nightclubs, because I'm not giving up my youth to like just to play football and dedicate myself like that. And I think that just speaks, I guess, to his play style and his personality, where it had that flair and that unpredictability, and he always played with a smile on his face as well. So it's just a shame that he didn't have a longer peak, or that he wasn't, because like when he moved to AC, he was already a little bit overweight, and he was already he was already on that sort of downward spiral. It would have been interesting, because I've read some stories when Pep came to Barca, like he changed Messi's diet around and he changed his professionalism and everything like that, because I think Messi was sort of like starting to hang around with Ronaldinho and all that. I wonder if Pep could have possibly turned him,
don't go there.
Maybe for a season or two, because he did get Eto'o on board for a season.
Here's the thing. Yeah, and Eto's a different character to Ronaldinho had to play with joy.
Yeah.
And if he became too professional, it wouldn't have worked. Yeah. It wouldn't have been the same. He had to be joyful, and that's what we love about him.
Yeah, it's sort of like those MMA fighters or those boxers, like where they find Jesus or they find religion in like maybe like the midpoint or like later on in their careers, and they just lose that doggedness and that hunger, and like they lose that killer instinct because they've lost like that focus as well, and maybe also because they made a boatload of money. Maybe that's why they've changed a little bit as well. But
helps.
Yeah,
so that's the rock. You got doctor. You got civilized.
but yeah, like. I don't know. It's an interesting hypothetical to bring on. Like maybe Pep could have got a season out of him, because he also rejuvenated Henry's career as well. Like he managed to get 2 more seasons out of Henry. Like maybe at his peak, I guess you could say, or like close to his peak. So yeah, like. It would have been interesting, but it's just a shame that we didn't see him around for longer, and he's had that downward spiral ever since that peak. I guess, yeah. Do we really need to go into too much detail about Luka Modric?
Well, I've got the resume because he's in both of our teams, but you can speak from the heart.
Look, I've already said this. For me, and especially after last season, he's probably showcased that he is the best. I'm not going to say best midfielder of all time, because you're talking about playing in different generations with different.
He's in there. Different
rules, different football pitches as well, like different technology of the ball and football pitches and things like that. So, but over the last 20 years, he's been and the only reason why he's probably overtaken for me in my eyes, Iniesta and Xavi, and I've said this multiple times, I think he's like a combination of Iniesta and Xavi. Like he has the dribbling ability of Xavi and he has the passing range. He has the dribbling ability of Iniesta and he has the passing range of Xavi. He's sort of like a combined version of both those players. And I saw it even, I think it was at Euro 2012. I think we played against Spain in the group stages, and I think we beat them 1-0. And he absolutely bossed the midfield against those three of Xavi, Iniesta, and Busquets. And like obviously, yeah, he didn't do it himself, but like he was doing a lot of the work alongside Rakitic and Brozovic, if I'm not mistaken, was around back then. And like he's shown that he can absolutely like change games like with a single pass that he showed that against Chelsea. And like he's just an absolutely amazing player. And considering he's turning 37, I think in like a week or two, and he's still playing at the highest level. I saw a post that said like Xavi moved to Qatar at like 35, Zidane retired at 36. Iniesta's currently playing in Japan, and Modric is still playing for Real Madrid at the highest possible level. And I think even like during preseason, like the club doctors apparently said that this guy could play to 40 or 41 if he wanted to. Like he's that fit and in that good physical shape. Just an absolutely amazing player. I wouldn't say he necessarily led. From a captain standpoint, he led Croatia to the World Cup, and like he had very solid performances in the midfield. But I'd say that Rakitic had the more impactful performances from the midfield than Modric. I think Modric sort of just maybe he sort of took a slightly back seat and he sort of helped tick things along. But Rakitic had a little bit more impact from my perspective. But yeah, he broke that streak of Ronaldo and Messi winning Ballon d'Ors. You know, some people will argue that, you know, it's politicized because Ronaldo that season left Real Madrid. But I think when you combine the World Cup plus the fact that Real Madrid won the Champions League and he was integral parts of that Champions League team, I think from one perspective you can say it was deserving, and it was probably about time that we can't just keep giving it to strikers or players that they score 40 or 50 goals in a season. Like, when are we going to start recognizing, you know, the defenders or the goalkeepers, like they or the midfielders, like they don't get as much praise or acknowledgement in these individual awards. It always tends to be the strikers or the attacking players that seem to pick them up. So, you know, from one perspective, you can have that point of view that it's politicized. From another perspective, if you take, I guess, a view of the game where you're not just looking at goals, I'd say you could probably say it was deserving. Had he won the World Cup, I think there'd be absolutely no debate at all in regards to that.
The only thing I'll say before you get off that is it's not for me just the fact that we're giving the top goal scorer the Golden Ball or the Ballon d'Or. It's the fact that it's 45 to 50 goals every season. It's not a normal amount of goals. Like a Golden Shoe normal amount of goals without Messi and Ronaldo is what?
30,
35 on a really good season. These guys are at 45 and 50 every season. Like, for me, it's hard to look past that for a Ballon d'Or. When you do that at the top level, you've won trophies because of it. It's just hard for me to... But your first point about it being a deserved Ballon d'Or is also right. He did deserve to win it. I just thought someone deserved it a little bit more. That's it.
Yeah, and like you could probably have that same argument for Iniesta and Wesley Sneijder back in 2010, where obviously Iniesta won the World Cup. Wesley Sneijder won the treble, and he was the leading goal scorer for Netherlands, and he led them to the World Cup final. So he probably had a very good shout to win it. But I think Messi that season scored like 70 goals or something.
That is a good record breaking one half of it. I'll look it up now while you are. Is he the next one?
I think he might have scored 70 that season, and then like the next season, I can't remember whether like it was calendar year or season or something like that, but it might have been.
No, it was a couple of seasons before that 70-goal season, but he was still 47 in 53 games,
Yeah,
which is still incredible.
and they reached this. Then Barca reached the semis, but like Messi did nothing but. I think they won the league title, and that's it, and the Spanish Cup. But yeah, anyway, I'm getting off point. My front three. So I got Casemiro, Ronaldinho, and Modric as my midfield three, and Ronaldinho could have played in my front three, but I just think he'd have a little bit more of an impact if he was a little bit behind these players, because he also had a pass on him as well. So I tried to make it a little bit functional. My front three: Messi on the right wing, Ronaldo down the center, and Henry on the left. And I think Henry, I was thinking about playing him in the center, but I think Ronaldo has a bit more of an impact, because especially considering his Real Madrid days, he has more impact as a goal scorer, even though Benzema played down the center at Real Madrid. So like those two, I guess, can interchange, Ronaldo and Henry. Henry gets a shout. For me, obviously, because I'm going 20 years, not 18 like you. The Invincible season is obviously there, but Henry, for those mid-2000s, he was absolutely unplayable. And there are a lot of ex-players that consider him the best Premier League player of all time. And he, even though he doesn't get best, and like some people even consider him the best striker, even though Alan Shearer holds the record, and now I'm pretty sure Harry Kane has overtaken his record as well, and I think Aguero might have overtaken his record for Premier League goals. But some people consider him the best striker in the Premier League, not just the best player ever in the Premier League. And obviously, then he got his move to Barcelona. It didn't quite click at Barcelona like it did at Arsenal, but he did end up getting his Champions League, and he played in that front three with Eto'o and Messi, and I think he managed to get like 20 plus, or I think he might have even reached 30 goals, because as a trio, I think they scored like 90 goals for the season, so he might have got his 30 if you look at all competitions. And yeah, just from an eye test, yeah, probably one of the best players over the past 20 years. And he was always in that conversation with, like, who's better, Ronaldinho or Henry? He was always in that sort of, because like they dominated those mid-2000s, those like 3 or 4 seasons from like early to mid-2000s. And yeah, I can't not have him in there.
Yeah, well, when you make it 20 years, when you take into account that Invincibles, then it's more of an argument. But when it's only 18 years from the start of 04-05 for me, he didn't have the resume to beat out Suarez for me, which is the only difference in our front three. So I guess it's time for me to do my resumes of those players. So I'll start with the players that we've already talked about, because we've already talked about them. I don't have anything to add to those players. Manuel Neuer in goal. With Schalke, wins a domestic cup, the Pokal, and makes a UCL semi-final in 10-11, which is no mean feat for a team like Schalke. 10 times league champion at Bayern, 2 times Champions League winner in 13 and 20. German World Cup winner, made the in 2014 and made the semis in 2010. German Footballer of the Year, 11 and 14. World Cup Golden Glove in 14. FIFA Pro World 11, 13, 14, 15, 20. Irrefutable for me. Especially if we're only going 04, 05 through to now, comfortably the best goalkeeper of that time for me, really the standout goalkeeper. That one picked itself. Philipp Lahm, again, another German, 8 times league champion, 06, 08, 2010, and then 13 through to 17. UCL in 2013, World Cup in 14, third place finishes in 06 and 2010 as well. Big part of all of those German teams in the World Cup. Euro final in 08, semi-final in 2012. German Footballer of the Year 2017, and FIFA Pro World 11, 13, 14. And like we said last week, I guess we I don't need to go that much further on Philip Lahm and just how intelligent and how good a right back he was for so many years, and his transition into central midfield, and how professional he was, the leadership, everything. What a great right back. A no brainer. I say a no brainer. Danny Alves was in the conversation, obviously, but for me, it was Philip Lahm. Left back Marcelo. I know you had him third team. Six times league champion with Real Madrid and 5 times Champions League winner, also with Real Madrid. And then FIFA Pro World 11 6 times in 2012, 2015, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Kind of like the left side of Danny Alves, marauding in the early days, really good going forward his whole career. And like we said, sort of inverted himself. For me, the biggest, not regret because I had nothing to do with it, but I would have loved to see him play central midfield, kind of in the Angel Di Maria role for that Real Madrid team in 13-14. I think he would have been unbelievable as an overlapping sort of left-sided central midfielder. So good technically, strong. You know, not the best defender, but serviceable. You have to be to win all the things that he's won and play at for that Real Madrid team for as long as he did. So yeah, for me, again, really a no-brainer there at left back. I couldn't have anyone really challenging him. Ramos, who you already talked about. Well, I guess we didn't really talk about, but we will now. 5 times league champion for Real Madrid, 4 times Champions League champion, World Cup winner in 2010, Euro winner in 08 and 12 for that dominant Spain team. Second most FIFA Pro World 11 appearances with 11 from in 08, and then from 11 to 20, he was the centre back or one of the centre backs in that FIFA Pro World 11 for that long, which, like I say, is the second most. A great ball playing centre back, a really good leader, quite temperamental in his early career, it must be said, and even into his later career as well. Picked up his share of red cards. But when you're the driving force and the leader of that later Real Madrid team, and when you're an integral part of that Spanish side that won everything, to be part of those 2 great teams, for me and for you, obviously, it was a pretty easy decision to put Sergio Ramos in that centre back as one of the centre backs. That one was a pretty easy one. Carlos Puyol for me. And I know you had PK in your, I think, second team it was. But for me, I only wanted to put one of those 2 in. And for me, it was always Puyol. He didn't win as much as PK, but Puyol was the foundation for pretty much everything that Barca was at that time. And I would dare say that the foundations he helped laid transferred themselves over time. I mean, now we're seeing all the clips come out, those clickbait clips about him pulling teammates away from the opposition fans when they're celebrating, doing stupid shit like that. That's just the type of guy he appeared to be, the type of leader he appeared to be from the outside looking in. Just no nonsense. As a defender, defended much, kind of like in the John Terry sort of mold, but he had all the international honours to go with it in terms of winning that 1 Euro in 08 and the World Cup in 2010, the 3 Champions Leagues, which again he was the foundational piece of, and 3 FIFA Pro World 11s in 07, 08 and 2010. So not maybe the resume that you just saw of a Sergio Ramos, but in terms of the leadership, the character, and just what I like to see from those types of defenders, he was everything encapsulated into that. So for those reasons, I had to put him in there.
Just quickly, I saw I saw a story. I think I'm not sure if it was one of those clickbait sort of made up stories, but apparently he was playing like street football or something, like 5-a-side, and in order to like win the ball or something, he actually, like, you know how when you're running full pelt and like you overrun, he went through like a sheet of glass and like just cut up his leg, and he still continued to play. Like I read like the story something along those lines. I'm just like, yeah, I can see Puyol doing that. Like it's such a Puyol thing to
Exactly.
do.
Oh no!
Like
If there's anyone, yeah,
yeah, like he played with like a massive heart, and yeah, like the leadership as well. Like he's one of those players that yeah he'd give his life to like he'd give his life to win a throw in or something, like to, not just to save a goal. Like that's like how he played, it seemed.
yeah, awesome. Just seeing that kind of character, maximizing everything he has for the team as well. Just awesome to watch. Um, Xabi Alonso, it might be a bit of this might be my sentimental pick in there, but for me, in terms of holding midfielders, I still haven't seen many better. There's been some great ones, and I love this position. It's maybe my favorite position to watch on the field. But Xabi Alonso as the coach on the field, second to none. I still haven't seen a more sort of intelligent and organizing sort of player. He was so good at that in terms of knowing when to press, in terms of knowing how to organize around him, in terms of in possession dictating the pace of play. Very much in that Spanish mold. I rate him a little bit higher than Busquets just because I think he could do it in multiple leagues, as we saw, and he could do it in a more sort of complete way where it's like you watch him and it's like, well, his talents could transfer to any team in the world, and we saw that because he played at Liverpool, won the Champions League there, runner up in '07, then goes over to Real Madrid, wins the La Liga in 2012, a Champions League in 2014. I know he couldn't play in that final because of suspension, but was a key part of that team that won it 3 times. And then he goes over to Bayern, wins the league 3 times under Pep. And that's maybe my favorite version of Xabi Alonso, the one at Bayern, because Pep would get that Bayern team to make changes systematically on the fly. And Xabi Alonso, as well as obviously Philip Lahm and even David Alaba, it's a supremely intelligent team, that Bayern team. But Xabi Alonso was probably 1A or 1B with Philip Lahm in terms of being able to transmit Guardiola's instructions to the rest of the players and do it in such a calm manner. Like I said, the range of passing, fantastic. There was a time where he was either 1A or 1B in terms of my favourite players when I was growing up with Steven Gerrard. So that's how highly I rated him. And I like to model a lot of, when I was growing up, a lot of my game on him. So for those reasons, the sentimental pick. But I mean, for me, he's the all encompassing, every trait I want in a holding midfielder, this guy had. And he was just sensational for so many good teams. So yeah, that's why he's in my holding role. Andreas Iniesta, do I need to say anymore? What a player. Right there in that conversation with the other guy, Luka Modric, in terms of definitely being 1A or 1B in terms of the best central midfielders of this generation. No doubt about it for me. And whatever debate you have around it, if you have Modric first, then that's fine because he's so good. If you have Iniesta first, that's fine as well because he's so good. 9 times league champion with Barca, 4 Champions Leagues, 06, 09, 11 and 15. World Cup winner with the World Cup final winning goal in 2010 and the Euro winner in 08 and 12. And the third most FIFA Pro World 11 appearances of all time with 9. So the resume speaks for itself. The footballer speaks for itself. I always tell this when I say about Iniesta, but I remember when Messi was coming up through and all the hype was about Messi, but they had Iniesta playing on the left-hand side of midfield a lot of the time. And I remember thinking, that guy on the other side of the midfield, he's just as good as Messi. This guy is unbelievable, can do everything. So, and then when Messi sort of transformed himself into Messi, the Messi, Iniesta somewhat, I guess, took the back seat, but the facilitating play in central midfield, the technique. He could do everything except probably like the sort of out of possession work. But even then, he was integral to the counter press of Barcelona at the time. But the technique, the way he could get out of any situation with the ball was unbelievable. He could do everything. For me, he could do everything that Xavi could do, but he could actually travel with the ball as well and dribble it. So, unbelievable football. I don't need to say too much more. Modric, I'll just go through the resume because I can't put it any better than you put it. 3 times league champion with Real Madrid in 17, 20, 22. Impressive for those reasons you say, that he's getting on in years, but his professionalism is second to none. And you can see that with the standard he's still playing at. 5 times Champions League winner, as all those great Real Madrid players are. World Cup runner-up in 2018, which is, if he played for a bigger country, as good as winning a World Cup with Croatia. That Ballon d'Or in 2018, the World Cup Golden Ball in 2018, and 5 FIFA Pro World 11s, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. So, like you said, just a great player. Messi, 10 league titles for Barcelona. I don't know how much we need to talk. I guess you'll jump in if you need to say something about these players, but what hasn't been said about Messi and Ronaldo already? So I'll just go through the resume. 10 times league champion, four UCLs. Already last season, I guess, got a league earned title with PSG. Didn't really contribute, but still to his resume. 7 times Ballon d'Or winner, and had it from 09 to 2012, and then again 15, 19, and 21. 6 times Golden Shoe winner, which is obviously incredible given that there's so much more to his game than just scoring goals. World Cup Golden Ball in 2014. And this is the stat that I did want to bring up because it's just incredible. In 5 seasons, he's scored in 5 seasons he has scored more goals than he's played games. It's ridiculous. When he's playing like 40 odd games a season, and in 5 of them he's scored more goals than he's played games. I mean, if I was to summarize him as a footballer, it would be an alien. He's not of this planet. The things like the way the ball just sticks to him, it doesn't leave his foot. When he was at his peak, he would travel at speed with the ball. It would be no further than like 30 centimeters away from his foot. I don't know how you could dispossess that guy. Just not human at all for me. Just the things. I don't know how you can play football at that level. And I mean, it kind of got boring for me to watch, but you always had to respect how unbelievable it was at the same time, if that makes sense.
What does any particular goal stick in mind? Because you know the goal that sticks in my mind is, and it was when it was against Real Madrid in the semi-finals. I think they beat him 2-0. I think Messi might have got both goals, and but the second goal was like Xavi gets the ball in around the center circle, and then Messi just takes it off his foot and dribbles past like 4 or 5 players and just slots it home. That one sticks in my mind like clear as day almost. And it, like maybe more so even just the way like Xavi doesn't even pass him the ball. Like he just takes it, like Messi just takes it off his foot. Like Xavi controls it, Messi takes it off his foot and dribbles past 5 players and just slots it home. And then that just kills the tie pretty much.
That was against Mourinho's Real Madrid.
Yeah,
when his whole game plan was to stop Messi.
Yeah,
and Messi goes and does that.
his game plan wasn't to stop Messi; it was to kill Messi. Like the amount of tackles that guy got from like Pepe and who was that midfield destroyer that Mourinho used? Like he was an absolute killer. Or did he use Pepe in midfield? He used Pepe.
Yeah, he used Pepe in midfield, exactly.
Yeah. So like, yeah, that, and you know that's actually another amazing thing. Like the amount of tackles that this guy
tough guy
gets, and he doesn't roll around the floor crying or anything like or complaining. Like he pretty much just gets straight back up, and I can't believe he's had no major injuries considering the amount of like knocks that he's got. Like I remember like I think it was in that 5-0 El Clasico win where like in the 89th minute like Ramos just comes in and crunches him like on the touchline. And it's like obviously Ramos gets a red card for that, but like some of the tackles he got were brutal. Like, especially that Mourinho Real Madrid era, like they were absolutely brutal. And you're like, how is this guy not injured? So yeah, I think your description of Alien, it's a good description.
Yeah, just not human. Like, and this, if you keep unraveling it, you'll see more things. Because, like you mentioned, like the durability. It's like, do you necessarily put that with a guy like Messi? No, but when you look at it in the cold light of day, he's unbelievably durable. He's been there for so many seasons, year after year, scoring goals after goals after goals. Just and even the demeanor thing goes into the alien. Like we say, doesn't get emotional. Rarely see this guy get emotional. Just focused on his business. Just an absolute a freak, an alien. Um, Luis Suarez, for me, while you were going through Thierry Henry, I was thinking Suarez is kind of the Thierry Henry of the next decade for me. And he's a little bit unlucky because he had to go up against, individually, he had to go up against Messi and Ronaldo in their peaks when they're just off the charts in a different level. But in terms of like the watchability, when you got a good Suarez team where he could be Suarez, there's not many footballers I would prefer to watch. He's right in the top tier. That Liverpool season, which I always harp on about, but it's the one I've always got to draw attention to because that Liverpool team were not a champion team. That was not a team that should have been champions. And this guy was literally the guy who made every player around him better. He made Steven Gerrard better by giving him a target and just giving him someone to aim for up front. He made Coutinho better with the link-up play. He made Jordan Henderson way better. He made Daniel Sturridge a world beater for a season. And he made Sterling infinitely better. This guy was so good that season. It was unbelievable. And let's not forget, before Salah broke the record, he scored 31 goals in that 13-14 season. He missed the first, I think, 6 or 8 games because of that suspension for biting Ivanovic the season before. And he did not score a single penalty in those 31 goals. That, for me, is still the best Premier League season by a player ever. And if you go back and look at the goals, the quality of goals is off the charts. There's like a header from the outside of the box. There's the 4 goals he scored against Norwich, which one after the other. It starts with a stunning 40-yard half volley. And then there's one where he chips it over like 2 players' heads and then hits another half volley. Just that season was remarkable. And then in terms of the resume, for Uruguay, wins a Copa America in 2011, World Cup semi-final in 2010, wins the Eredivisie with Ajax in 2011, where he was one of those sort of Dutch players that we see a lot who like gets like 40-odd goals in the Dutch league. It's like, oh, how good is he going to be when he goes over? Well, he took a little bit of time once he went to the Premier League, but he was pretty sensational in that season, which I talked about for Liverpool. But no honours for Liverpool, obviously. But then 4 league titles, 15, 16, 18, 19 for Barca. That Champions League title in his first season there. That 2016 season actually scored more goals than Lionel Messi. Lionel Messi in his peak. He scored, I think, 48 goals. He's the only other player to win a golden shoe in that time other than Messi and Ronaldo. At the time where it's him and Forlan, I think, in 2009, which we said in the pod a few weeks ago. But to do that, to actually score more goals on the same team as Messi and somewhat be the main man of that team, even though maybe you can never be the main man on a Messi team, but that in itself is incredible. And I'm still so disappointed. Like, sure, he can leave Liverpool, but don't go and play with Messi or Ronaldo. Go and make your own team somewhere else. Go and be the main man somewhere else, because I wanted to see all of his ability on display. And you saw it at Barcelona. He scored a shitload of goals in that season, obviously. But he was still playing next to Messi, and that always takes the shine off you. So for me, that's a little bit disappointing. But then has the sort of late career renaissance with Atletico, was a huge part of them winning the league a couple of years ago in 2021. Was the Copa America best player in 2011, Football Writers Player of the Year and PFA Player of the Year, the double in 2014. And Obviously, you couldn't give it to anyone else. Also won the European Golden Shoe in 14 and 16, those two incredible seasons, and only won FIFA Pro World 11 in 2016. But again, I think he's a little bit of a victim that he was playing in the time of Messi and Ronaldo. But for me, again, it was probably sentimental that he was a no-brainer to be my striker of the last 18 years. But I just think when he was on it, the quality he played with has been rarely seen. You mentioned Thierry Henry, you mentioned obviously Ronaldinho. Maybe Ronaldinho's a little notch above everyone, but Kaká in that time, all those players. Such a joy to watch. Luis Suarez is right there for me. Um, and then finally, Cristiano Ronaldo. I love with Ronaldo, and this is the reason I put Ronaldo just a little bit higher than Messi. And it's not for a footballing ability thing, because obviously I don't actually think there's ever been a footballer better than Messi in terms of technique, in terms of just how consistent he is with the technique. It's unbelievable. But I like that Ronaldo's a human, but he's like almost the perfect human. But he is. You can see that he's human, and you can see that he pushes himself every day to be more athletic, to be more of like a machine. But I like that you can see those aspects, whereas Messi, you just think he's been dropped from another planet. Um, and the transference, the fact that Ronaldo showed that he could do it in multiple leagues, I always rate that very highly as well. So obviously that three-peat winning Premier League team with United, where they had the Champions League in '08, in amongst those years, wins the Ballon d'Or that season as well. Gets his big move to Real Madrid, where he wins La Liga in 2012 and 2017, to go along with four Champions League titles, where he was undoubtedly the main man for all of them. And then goes over to Juventus, wins two more Serie or league titles over there. Euro 2016 with Portugal, I know he had to come off in the final, but scored some great goals on the way and was obviously a big part of that team that won that tournament. 5 times Ballon d'Or winner in '08, 13, 14, 16 and 17. 4 times Golden Shoe winner. And PFA Player of the Year in '07 and '08, and Serie A Player of the Year in his 2 times there as well. So, yeah, I don't know how much more we need to say about Cristiano Ronaldo, but him and Messi were obviously no-brainers, and I don't know if you want to weigh in on the Messi v Ronaldo or just wax lyrical about Ronaldo as well.
No, like the comparison that I have with them is like maybe sort of like Federer versus Nadal. Like Federer's he's the more natural talent. Like obviously Nadal has talent, but like Nadal just looks much more like he relies on his athletic side than his talent, whereas like Federer just seems like everything used to flow, and like it was just like everything just looked easy. So that's probably like the best analogy that you have. Like with Messi, everything just looks easy, everything looks like it flows, whereas with Ronaldo, you mentioned it, like he works. Like he's probably like the hardest worker in all of football in terms of like working on his technique, working on his body and his athleticism, and like his mental strength is absolutely phenomenal as well. Like and he's really worked on that over the past like 10 years, because I remember earlier in his career he was obviously he was young, he was young, petulant, had it in him to react. Even now, you sort of see that a little bit, but it's probably more the fact that he expects everyone to have a higher standard, and he tries to raise everyone else around him to have that higher standard that he has and higher expectation, and not to just be okay with mediocrity. And I think he's more of a leader than Messi as well. That's and I've seen that especially over the past like 5 or 6 years. Seen that side of him more, especially after that Euro 2016 win, where it was almost like he was the coach. Like, I remember him like being active in the box and going up and down the touchline, and encouraging his players and trying to motivate them and everything. And it was a great captain's performance from him in that final, even though he only played the first 15 or 20 minutes and had to come off through injury. He was still there to drive on his team from the sidelines, and I think that he obviously had a big part from a mental aspect of Portugal winning that. And he could have easily just gone into the locker room, into the showers, and then gone into the stands or something. I don't know what the protocol is, but no, he remained on the bench. He remained in the coach's box and tried to give his team that extra bit of motivation and whatnot. And yeah, absolutely phenomenal player. More exciting in his earlier career, became more efficient in his later career, but yeah, and you know how I had him down the middle and Henry on the wing, and I said they can interchange. I guess it depends what Ronaldo do you want. Do you want the mid 2000s to late to 2010, 2011 Ronaldo, where he was still exciting, playing on the wing, or do you want the efficient Ronaldo where he's playing probably a little bit, he's popping up more centrally and scoring goals of the early to mid 2010s, and that's why him and Henry can obviously interchange in my system. A phenomenal player and deserves everything that he's worked on and won as well.
Yeah, and just on that, and just one more was both Ronaldo and Messi have 15 FIFA Pro World 11s, which is obviously the most of all time, which it's fitting that they share that. I feel like most players are more exciting when they're young and then they become more efficient. That's not breaking ground to say that, but you think of examples like young Gareth Bale was awesome. Young Wayne Rooney was also. They did different things, They were unpredictable, and they were young, and they were vibrant and full of this youthful enthusiasm for the game, which made them try so many different things. And then when they realize that they're getting older, they're just like, all right, I've got to maximize everything that I can do. So they channel it all into these specific things that help the team and help them get their individual accolades, if you're looking at a Ronaldo. Because while we're talking about the leadership, there's also no doubt that he's quite selfish, and he does it for selfish reasons. But, I mean, whatever the reason is, as long as it works, it works. So, yeah, no denying that. Young Ronaldo was a lot of fun to watch, like a lot of young players. But, yeah, I don't really have anything to add. I think that's my best players of the last 18 years or so. And it's like I said, that team pretty much chose itself for me. I didn't really have any debates on any of those positions. It got harder as you got to particularly third team. Third team was the hardest one to pick, no doubt. But first team for me almost wrote itself down on the piece of paper.
Who was your coach for the first team? I'm not sure if we revealed that last week.
Ancelotti.
Ancelotti. Yeah, so I had Pep.
And you had Guardiola.
Yeah. So
yeah, we touched on that before, but the fact that Ancelotti's now won 3 Champions Leagues in the time frame, and in your time frame, I think he might have won 4 Champions Leagues, and he's done that with, for all intents and purposes, 3 different teams. I know it's the same club in Real Madrid, but he did have a lot of the core, I guess, but it's still a different team for me when you don't have Ronaldo or Ramos. So, yeah, for me, and we talked about it, the way he goes about his management style is my preferred, what I like to see, and he lets these great players be great players, which is great fun to watch.
Yeah, I just think Pep's had a bigger impact in football philosophy, or the way football is being played, or how it's transformed over the past 10 years or 10, 12 years since he started coaching. He's like, it seems that for better or worse, and I think you touched on the last pod where teams have this obsession to play out from the back and always start with the goalkeeper, and that probably has come from that that Barcelona team in 08 or 09, and then it's obviously developed, as Pep has moved on to Germany and now to England. And I remember even when we were playing, like our coach in under 18s, he tried, and that I think we were 18 when that Barcelona team came about, and we were 17, 18, and like our coach tried to get us to play in that sort of similar mold as well. Even though we didn't play a 4-3-3, I think we played a 4-4-2. But yeah, like it even had an influence down in Australia in bloody under 18 football, like state league under 18 football, and that's why, like, you see more and more teams trying to play that way. Even like these like mid-table, lower table teams, even they're trying to play it. Maybe not when they're playing against Man United or Man City or Arsenal and Liverpool, but they're trying to play that way against, other teams around their level. Like you see them trying to play out from the back and trying to keep possession and have that build-up play rather than just, launching the ball forward. And that's why I have him as my number one. You could have also had a shout for Alex Ferguson in there as well, because I think Alex Ferguson retired in 2013 or 2014. So he's been around for at least half of our time frame as well. So Fergie could have had a shout as well. Wenger could have had a shout for me, considering my, since I went for 20 years instead of 18, that Invincible season is there. But these three coaches, I think, they won more, and I think they had a bigger impact as well. And like I had Mourinho as my number 3, and that's more because he sort of created that counter to the Barcelona of Spain type of play, and that's he was
the perfect villain.
Yeah, he was the kryptonite. Like he sort of started or brought to light those dark arts, where
he's so Machiavellian back then. In that time at Real Madrid, unbelievable. What a villain.
It was actually like dirty to watch,
Yeah. It was so grimy.
Yeah, and like I think there was an overlap podcast with PK, and I think PK said that like during that time, like it started to cause a rift between the Spanish players, and I can imagine. I think even like Puyol and Casillas, apparently they're like best friends, and even they weren't talking to each other during that time. And then I think before the World Cup or before the Euro, I think it was before the Euros because Mourinho came in after that. Before the Euros in 2012, I think they came together and they obviously sorted things out, and they got the team to obviously put things aside, at least for the national team. But yeah, like like I remember even like around that time, like, dude, Mourinho is going to kill the Spanish team as well. Like maybe because he's Portuguese and Portugal, Spain have that rivalry. Maybe he's trying to deliberately also kill that Spanish dominance by causing this rift between the Real Madrid and Barca players. But yeah, like I reckon Mourinho enjoyed being the bad guy, to be honest.
Oh, definitely. It consumed him at that time, no doubt. That was different level to watch.
But it was also because like I think he was still considered like the best or one of the best coaches at the time, and Guardiola was that new kid on the block. He was getting all the media attention and media hype, and he was known as the good guy and all this stuff, and that probably just drove him into that sort of madness even more.
Definitely. I think for Wenger, the no Champions Leagues really kills him when you're debating him against these other guys.
Yeah.
And Ferguson, if you made it 30 years, no doubt he's your first team manager, but he really needs that treble, that 99 treble to be included for me to push him above Ancelotti. But if you did 30 years, Ancelotti's 03 Milan team would also be included. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
But also the thing I saw a stat with Sir Alex Ferguson. I think he's like never beaten Guardiola. Like I think he has like 2 draws against him and like 6 or 8 losses or something. I think he's never beaten Klopp as well. And I think he has a very bad record against Mourinho and Ancelotti. So like he has like losing records against these top 4 managers. And like they're not just like 60%, 40%. I think they're like 80% losing records, like or close to. So
Honestly, if Ferguson didn't have that three-peat from '07, '08, and '09 and a Champions League title in there, for me, I think his resume would be quite weak without that, because he'd be living on the '99 treble, which is a great accomplishment, obviously. But all those league titles he racked up in the '90s, the Premier League was extremely weak in the '90s. If I go back and watch like classic games from the '90s, I'm like, this is not that good. Like Wenger comes along, increases the stakes a little bit, but before Wenger, like there was really nothing. There was that Blackburn team that had a huge cash injection, but that was like, I think, he won the first two or three Premier League. So, and you look at the standard set by these new Liverpool. Or I could even take it as far back as that Chelsea team under Mourinho that you were talking about, where Mourinho first comes in. Mourinho took the Premier League to a new standard. Before that, those. Oh, and obviously the Invincibles before that. I mean, I can't. But even the Invincibles drew like 12 games or 13 games that season. So I thought when Mourinho came in and it was Wenger, Mourinho, Ferguson, Benitez, then Ferguson really had to earn whatever he got. So winning those three in a row was massive for me, because before that I didn't think they faced that stiffer competition, to be quite honest.
yeah, all right.
And I'll just add, none of those United teams, except for maybe '07, '08 or '08, '09, none of them before that were particularly great in terms of records or statistics. Like, I think very rarely would United get into 90 points for the season, and they normally lose like 4 or 5 games a season, draw 8 or 9. So, like, it wasn't this City or Liverpool pace or even that Chelsea pace that we're seeing now.
Yeah, but that also might have been a what's the word? Not a result of the time, a catalyst of the times, or like, but basically like because there wasn't a requirement to be that perfect. Maybe they did, and also considering, like, before Wenger came in, like, players didn't look after their diets. They were drinking every weekend after the games, especially. They weren't professional, or as professional as they are now. So yeah, but I think also, because the standard didn't require them to be as good. They didn't have to be as good, and it's similar to when you play against, and like we've played, like, even at our level that we played, like when you play against a team that's beneath you, you sometimes drop to their level and start playing at their level or at their standard. Maybe it's a mental thing, or maybe it's just like, I don't know what it is, but like you've seen that before, and like, just because the league around them didn't require them to be so perfect, then they didn't have to be. So that's probably why their stats aren't as good, maybe.
Yeah, that's definitely a good counterpoint.
Yeah, or maybe because back then at least football was a little bit, or at least like the football was like a little bit more evenly distributed between teams, like, or like players or talent was a little bit more evenly distributed. You didn't have these super teams that you have now. Like, you didn't have your Man City super team, your Liverpool super team. Like, you had to, like, you obviously had great teams, but the other teams around them had like 2 or 3 standout players that were at that level and could compete. Whereas now, like, if you go through the teams, like, there's probably like one, like, how many players from the teams below the bottom 6, how many players could get into the starting 11 of those top 6? Like, it would be interesting to look at that now, because like didn't you had players like Gascoigne and stuff. Like, wait, who did he play for again? Was it Tottenham or no?
Yeah,
like, and Tottenham weren't great at all. But like he spent a lot of, he never played for a top team, but he spent his time at Tottenham. Shearer as well. He didn't move to United. Like, imagine if he moved to United.
That one's a better one.
Yeah, like, but he moved to Newcastle to finish second. So, yeah. it would be interesting to look into
Yeah.
that. Maybe do a deep dive one day.
Yeah, you'd have to deep dive that one for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, that brings us to the end of our podcast, the end of our episode. Do you want to run through your three teams just again, just so we can refreshen our memories?
Yeah, no worries. So the third team, playing a 4-2-2-2, is Buffon in goal, Zanetti at right back, Ferdinand and Chiellini centre backs, Jordi Alba left back, Steven Gerrard and Andrea Pirlo in the midfield, Thomas Muller and Ronaldinho just behind the front two of Aguero and Benzema. Second team in the 4-3-3 is Casillas, Dani Alves at right back, John Terry and Jerome Boateng centre backs, David Alaba as the left back, N'Golo Conte holding midfielder with Xavi and Kroos in front of him, Ian Robben on the right, Lewandowski through the middle, and Samuel Eto'o as left wing. And the first team in a 4-3-3 again, Manuel Neuer in goal, Philip Lahm right back, Ramos and Puyol two centre backs, Marcelo left back, Xabi Alonso holding with Iniesta and Modric in front, and Messi, Suarez and Ronaldo up front.
And your coaches for Team 3, 2, and 1?
My third team coach was Klopp, I believe. My second team coach was Guardiola, and first team coach was Ancelotti.
Not a bad team, or teams. So my third team, coached by Mourinho, Peter Cech in goal. Could have put Buffon in there on second thought, but I don't want to flip flop, so I'm sticking with Cech. Cafu right back, PK and Vidic centre back, Marcelo left back, Bale right mid, Lampard and Xabi centre mid, Giggs left mid, Kaká playing just behind David Villa up front. So it's a 4-4-1-1. Team 2, coached by Ancelotti, is a 4-3-3. Casillas in goal, Lahm at right back, Puyol and Ferdinand as my centre back partnership, Patrice Evra as my left back, Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta as my midfield three, and Robben, Rooney, and Ribery as my front three. Team 1 is a 4-3-3 as well, coached by Pep. Got Neuer up front. I was going to say Neuer banging in the goals. Manuel Neuer. That reminds me of something that I saw as well, but so I'll mention that after. So Manuel Neuer, centre back. Manuel Neuer, goalkeeper. Bloody hell, this guy could play all over the pitch. Dani Alves, right back. Sergio Ramos and Terry, centre back. Oh, Sergio Ramos also could have been a shout for right back, just because I think in that early part of his career he was at right back. And he was a very, very good right back. He was considered one of the world's best in mid to late 2000s and early 2010-11 when he started to transition at centre back. So yeah, Sergio Ramos and Terry centre backs, Ashley Cole left back, Casemiro defensive mid, Ronaldinho and Modric just in front of him, Messi, Ronaldo and Henry up front. And those three I guess can interchange, like they're smart enough. I saw the Liverpool Man United game. You know how you guys had that where like Bruno cleared it into like one of his own players, and then like it deflected into, or he cleared it wrongly, like straight into Martinez, and when Martinez was on the line for a corner. Do you remember that? Someone put that picture up and put the caption, Maguire would have scored this.
Any excuse to dump on Harry Maguire.
But yeah, like when I saw that, I was just like, oh man, that's hilarious, man. This guy gets shat on so much. Maybe the move to Chelsea and the potential move to Chelsea would benefit him and rejuvenate his career and his reputation, because right now I'm starting to feel sorry for the guy, to be honest. Like, it's getting that bad. I'm not sure if you're in the same boat.
Yeah, you know it's bad because you've been one of the people who's been dumping on him the most.
I'm probably been like the bloody cheerleader or whatever, like the main guy that's been doing it, rallying the crowd. But yeah, look, on that note, I hope people have enjoyed the first visualized pod. Like, we don't have the cartoon thumbnail anymore, so we're going to change things around a little bit. Hopefully it's recorded correctly. Hopefully my laptop is good enough to record it, and there's no issues with it. Otherwise, I'll have to get rid of the video and go back to the cartoon thumbnail. But yeah, look,
maybe people will want the cartoon thumbnail back after seeing our faces.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what they look like.
Filth. Yeah, maybe they'll just like they'll stop tuning in. Like, we'll start getting like 10 views instead of 20 or 30 views. Like, we have been.
Guys, please keep tuning in.
Yeah, look, Caleb, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully, the results go Arsenal and Liverpool's way for the weekend, and yeah, you guys managed to get out of the relegation battle. But for everyone else listening, thanks for coming, and bye for now.